course, Greg Howe, improvising over Sunny, which is an all-time classic, fusion classic. Of course, I'm teaching the solo note for note, all concepts and systems included. In-screen tablature, downloadable tablature for my patrons. You can get a Patreon membership here in the description below. Like for $5 you can choose to support me a little bit for my efforts here, and you get the downloadable tabs as well. If you don't want to miss any of these parts, just consider subscribing to the channel as well as always. And also, I don't really care how good you think you are as a rock guitar player. You're gonna struggle with this solo if you don't know a little bit about arpeggio shapes. So here's my arpeggio shape guide as well for you guys to download free in the description below. I'm in my best teaching years, guys, right? I'm really trying to teach you and have the same enjoyment I have playing Greg's music or fusion guitar in general. So you really need that arpeggio guide. I think I'm offering that for free in the description below. Anyway, lots of cool stuff in the description, but without further ado, let's go into the lesson straight away. Let's go. So let's get into the lesson, guys. We only switch between A minor and G minor. That's basically it. Let's be a little bit more specific. A minor, you can go very broad, I think. You can go A minor blues, A minor pentatonic, A Dorian, maybe A Aeolian even. You just try out a few things. You might step on a landmine, I always say, but don't worry too much. You shift just one note and you sound good again. Anyway, but then for the G Dorian. So I explained that in part number 1, how you need to think through these progressions. It's less complicated than you think. It's only over the E7. When you want to sound a little bit more complicated, you need an E7. You need like an E altered. Anyway, that kind of sound. That's what you need over that. So that's more complex, but all the rest is basically switching between 2 minors. So let's go, guys. Lick number 1, at least in this part number 3, we're at minute 1:31. It's this thing here. I'm gonna also move a little bit over to here so you can have enough place for the in-screen tabs. Right? This is interesting because this, guys, is really a pathway that Greg uses a lot. I really love this pathway as well. It's an A Dorian thing, right? So you need to visualize this. 14, 15, 17. 14, 15, 17, 19, for example. And then the 20, right? It's a really cool pathway. Try to see also this. Just A minor blues, right? And maybe these two. Just A minor pentatonic. So now I have so like that kind of pattern. I done a whole video, guys, on that motif, right? You can find that on my channel as well. Always thinking in pathways. That's what I'm trying to say here. So you can learn this line like kind of a parrot, but I'm just copying. But I've always did my best to see concepts. Right? The concept here is this pathway. That makes an interesting pathway to do like that motif. Anyway, that's what I have always called in my lessons, in my universe course, on my website, on Patreon. I'm calling it pathways. You need to see those pathways if you want to get into that more sophisticated sound. Lick number 2 for you guys. So he's doing like. So anyway, what he's doing, I'm gonna show this line, lick number 2. Stick here. What is this? It again belongs to a system, guys, right? So we're in G Dorian, right? So he's singing. Every time when he can do this, he's gonna do it, right? The most famous pattern where he does it in a G Dorian is so G Dorian, but you can do it anywhere where that kind of configuration happens, and it happens also here. Into an F major 7 sound, which is still part of lick number 2. So this is such an important move. I've done a whole extra lesson, so on Patreon there are several memberships. For my top tiers, I'm gonna go on this configuration or grouping, right? Greg is using that anywhere. He's using that also for minor 7 and for other kind of arpeggio kind of colors, and I'm gonna go on Patreon for my top tier level, right? So then he's transitioning back to A minor, so it's constantly that switching between A minor and G minor. Interesting there is to point out again, probably, guys, is when he does an arpeggio, a simple arpeggio like this, he never sweeps it in a down, he always does down, pluck, down, down, pluck, down, right? Down, pluck, down. He doesn't do down, 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 Greg, right? It's kind of strange in the beginning, but once you get used to it, it belongs to that whole ecosystem that Greg is using. And here again, chords change again. So at that point again, we're on lick number, lick number 3, guys. He's back to F Ionian or G Dorian. And there's a few variations. He could have done it. I've transcribed this. Very common for Greg. Very classic descent. Basically, you got the tabs here as always, guys. Nothing too much to explain here. I bet he's doing that every time a little bit different in every take, but it's kind of the idea that counts. He's finding a path down, right? And he can go a little bit in that diagonal, but he can also choose to go in that diagonal. It's just which pathway you choose. But he wants to descend, and he wants to end on the third of the major 7. Once he's here, doing this shape. It's interesting because why he's doing that? Rather than F major 7, instead of doing the F major 7 shape that all beginning fusion guitarists do, right, he's doing a 9 shape, an F major 9, which is right, so not that, but anyway, that's that line for you guys. Then the F7 comes by, and now he needs to switch to that kind of more sophisticated E altered scale, or kind of an E what I would just, we call it a 5-1 tension or an E tension, so he needs some tension here, right? Could have gone for why? Because an E7 is coming by. See? Every time I see this, I know these sounds will work, so that's what he's doing here, guys, right? He's stepping into an E diminished 7. Carried away here, guys, but that's lick number 4 for you, and that kind of already wraps up this. It's somewhat shorter part, but why not? Let's take it easy. 4 very cool ideas for you guys. I've tried to give a little bit also the concepts. Okay, right. Big shout out to my patrons. So on Patreon, guys, in the description below, you can choose to support me a little bit every month, and then you get tablature of the whole lesson, like in a beautiful downloadable PDF. You can also find a link in the description, my course, Greg Howe Universe course, which is 100 kind of Greg Howe inspired lines for you completely to dive in and transform your playing. That's what I think you need, licks, to do that. Also, guys, if you don't want to miss anything, subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to go on and walk you through that complete solo. There's my arpeggio guide, as always, guys. Start with some good arpeggio shapes. If this is all too overwhelming, well, maybe you should just start with a few arpeggio guys, right? And then also here's that I talked about that, like that motif, like for lick number 1 of this lesson. Well, here's that lesson that you can go watch to go and learn that kind of cool motif that Greg is using all the time. So fun to do. You can do it in many shapes, so you can find that here. And I'll see you next time for part number 4. Bye.